All right. To solve the nonlinear system, remember nonlinear system because one of them is a quadratic. Okay, you have three different methods. You have elimination, you have substitution, you have graphing. I'm going to go through substitution first, and then I'm going to walk you through elimination, and then I'm going to walk you through graphing, all in the same ones, and then it's going to be up to you which one you choose to use. Okay, so in this problem, if I'm using substitution, I'm looking at the variable y by itself here, and since y is by itself, I could say, hey, right here I can plug in a y value. I can plug in an expression for y in either of those. So right here, y equals this. So I could take that and I can plug it in right here. Okay? By doing that, I would end up with x minus 4 is equal to x squared plus 5x minus 1. Should recognize right away I have an x squared, and I've got to move that over or set everything equal to 0 in order to solve that. Yeah.
Why is there a negative next to the x in the front?
So that should be a positive x. Thank you. That should be x minus 4. Thank you. Okay, and so now we're going to get everything equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract x over, and I'm going to add 4. Pay attention now. Okay, this part's 0 and that's 0, so I get 0 is equal to x squared plus 4x plus 3. From there I solve that using completing the square or graphing or factoring. It's easiest to factor this one. That's just x plus 3 times x plus 1. So x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 1. Those are my values for x. Now that's x. That didn't solve the system. That just gave us the value for x. If I want to find y, I've got to plug each of these values for x back into one of my equations. It'll work in either of them. So if I take y equals x minus 4 and I plug negative 3 in, I get y equals negative 3 minus 4, which is negative 7. So I'd have the ordered pair negative 3, negative 7. That's one solution. And then I'd have to put negative 1 in. Okay, so doing the same thing, y equals x minus 4, plug that negative 1 in, you get y equals negative 1 minus 4, so y equals negative 5. So my other solution would be negative 1, negative 5. Those are my two solutions. Negative 1 and negative 5. That is using substitution. If you like substitution, or if it's set up easy for it, or y is by itself here, then go for it. You could do elimination with this problem. Elimination, you take the same pieces, and you are trying to eliminate a variable by adding your equations together. In this case, if I were to change this sign, like multiply this equation by negative 1, which really what that does is it just flips all of your signs on that equation. So that becomes negative, negative, and positive. And then if I add these two up, this becomes 0. Y plus negative y. This becomes, well, I can't put an x squared and x together, so x squared just comes down. 5x and negative x is 4x. And negative 1 and 4 is 3. And once again, I get back to this point right here, x squared plus 4x plus 3, which we know factors to x plus 3, x plus 1. And then from that point, you go through the same process. X equals negative 3 and negative 1. You plug those in. You find out that y equals negative 7 and negative 5. You get your solutions of negative 1, negative 5, and negative 3, negative 7. Now obviously you have to go through this process again to get that, but it's the same steps from there. That's using elimination. And then the last one is graphing. Taking those same two equations again. Y equals x squared, what? Plus 5x minus 1. This was the one a lot of you were using. We call this y sub 1 and this one y sub 2. You grab your graphing calculator, go to your y equals menu. You plug in each of them. In y sub 1, I'll put my x squared plus 5x minus 1. Y sub 2, x minus 4. We hit graph. If it doesn't give you that exact picture, make sure you do zoom 6, which is zoom standard. Okay? And then you look for your points of intersection. Happens to be there and there. So I'm going to calculate those. So second trace. I go to number 5, and it says, what do you want your first curve to be? Well, I only have 2 curves in there, so I'm just going to hit enter. And then second curve, it's the other one. And then it says guess. Well, if I want this point of intersection right there, I'm going to bring the cursor closest to that one. It says at -1, -5. Note, that happened to be one of my answers earlier. Okay, so one solution is -1, -5. And then I do that again. Second calculate, or second trace, option 5, intersection, first curve, second curve. And now I'm moving my cursor closest to that other one. Intersection at -3, -7. You now have 2 algebraic ways to do it. That's substitution and elimination. And you have a graphing way to do it. Okay? Questions? Okay, you have 2 more problems on your warm-up there that you need to finish. If you don't know how to, make sure you ask, get that submitted. You also have an online assignment today. It's 9.6 online. And there's an 8-problem review from your chapter review on there as well. That's to help you get ready for your quiz tomorrow.